Um, this is my first video highlighting me coaching some semi-professional rugby league athletes, in particular prop forwards, and trying to take them through a strength program. Strength is an essential need of rugby league, as you need to be strong enough to um, move an opponent backwards and also take the force of an opponent when they're carrying the ball in the defence. A lot of it is formulated around triple extension of lower limb. So a lot of the exercises in the program were around lower limb triple extension, deadlifts, squats, box jumps, anything explosive what can help us transfer onto the field in a positive manner. Um, as can be seen, we use an activation in a warm up. We're trying to activate stuff like glute medius just to try and secure the hips. Um, a common coaching technique within rugby league is if you lose your hips, you lose the contact. Obviously, this is going to have a negative impact on the team if you're constantly losing the ruck area. The opponents can get a roll on. I always I like to demonstrate these activations. It allows me to show the athletes the movement what we're trying to achieve, and it also allows me to give them internal external cues because I have to think about what I'm doing, and I think it positively transfers to them. Um, Always trying to educate them, just giving them little cues. So my cues are you should be able to maintain a conversation because activation work, draw the belly button into the ground and drive up through the legs, through the base of your feet, sorry. Um, so we did highlight a progression. So we went from bilateral to unilateral. This is kind of one of my key philosophies of where we can and for the right reasons to move exercise from bilateral to unilateral. This replicates sport in a better fashion than just bilateral exercises, although bilateral exercises will have some place within my programming. So here we're really loading that posterior chain. It kind of replicates like when you land, when you change direction, and just the yielding of that force of the ground reactions. So now we're moving on to another warm-up exercise. So lunges is quite common within warm-ups within rugby league. On game day, we can add a twist in it to start adding that like core stability into it and sort of replicate the passing of a ball. Just because we're in a gym, we're just going to do 6 reps on each leg, just to get just to start going through the movement pattern, just start warm up any lower limb muscles, improve that mobility before we get under the bar. Yeah, it's just important to have activation work and functional exercise within my warm up. So here I'm just trying to explain to everyone all our rep ranges, our sets, our working time, why we're doing it. One of my other key principles within my philosophy is education. Um, some athletes are really inquisitive about this. They always want to know why we're doing certain things, which is brilliant. It means that they can take individual accountability for their training, which in most cases seems to improve performance, seems to it seems to make them have that extra motivation, probably because they feel like they've got an onus on their training. Um, yeah, so I think always talking to your athletes, just trying to help them out, always explaining your rationale, it just helps develop that rapport, which is obviously going to be key. Um, One study has suggested that athletes seem to confide in certain members of the coaching staff who don't really have any influence on selection, so like your S&C coaches, your physios, and people like that. So I think it's important to have a good rapport. I was explaining why we're doing stuff, and I think it just helps with compliance. Also touches a, it also helps with like the S&C framework, which is talking about the psychosocial approach, some of the stresses these athletes might be under, especially being within a semi-professional environment. They might have job stresses, contractual issues with the club, especially if they're fighting for a new contract, spouse relationship issues. So yeah, I think developing this rapport just through the education does help me expand into all these different elements. So here we are, so we're warming up on the bar. Um, Quite command style here, so telling them what reps we're doing, why we're doing them, how many reps. So it was 5 reps. This is so that we don't cause any micro trauma, too much micro trauma within the muscles, and therefore we don't have any DOMs, which is going to be important because we might train on a Thursday, play on a Sunday, and any DOMs could limit performance. That's some of what we don't really want. Um, Here again, just explaining to the athletes, giving them the cue: chin up, chest up. Um, yeah, just try to keep him in a better position. Really, his squat's not perfect, but everyone moves differently, so we've got to take this into account. Um, so at the moment, it's very command style. There has been questions on whether command style is the most optimal way of learning or teaching, and it's like um, it says that it can decrease motivation, but in this environment, we might see him on a Thursday night. We'd have a lot of time to sort of being amongst it, allow them to explore other teaching styles on Boston Spectrum. So I think in this instance, command style, let's get them in the gym, let's get out where let's get out on the field where we can do some more problem solving stuff with maybe teaching games for understanding. Obviously, we'll be doing like a captain's run where we go through set plays. So that's where their problem solving element, especially as they're adults, comes into it, and that's their optimal way of learning. So in here, we just want to kind of get our work done and get it done to a good standard so we can have these positive transfer of skills. Um, the rationale for the squat um, obviously helps us with our landing from jumping, especially from jumping if the prop needs to jump to claim a high ball on a very rare occasion. It also helps with this transfer of power from the lower limb into the upper limb, especially when making tackles, because you drop your knees, hit triple extension, and drive through. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to motivate them. I'm trying to create this optimistic and good ambience within the gym. This is important. It gives them that like positive association with training. Training shouldn't be a negative experience. It should be good because you're constantly improving, constantly developing, and it does transfer well into your game. So, um, what one of the athletes was asking me about squat depth. Coming from a sports rehabilitation background, I know about certain certain like issues, what can arise, what can stop this squat depth, or just hinder mobility. Just could be tight hip flexors, lack of ankle mobility, and tight calves. Um, Obviously, once we get to know the player a bit better, they would have an individualized warm up. So this in particular athlete who's squatting now, his will probably be around ankle mobility, hip mobility, and probably the physio's getting some soft tissue treatment done on his calves just to help out. I am explaining this to him, just giving him the information because then he might go away research it himself, which is absolutely brilliant. Or he might mention it to the physio, might help him with some soft tissue work if I don't get a chance to discuss it with them at that time. Um, I think one of the criticisms of this for myself was I told him the timings. It was quite command style from Boston Spectrum, yet I wasn't actually dictating the rest times. I kind of left it to them, which is an issue within my own coaching. I had my phone on me, I had a stopwatch on me, so I had no excuse. So within my future practice, always I will always dictate the rest time just to make sure that we're giving the right amount of rest time, and making sure that people are obviously just sacking it off kind of thing. Obviously, this is quite a new experience for myself. Obviously, coming from a rehab background, it's quite one on one. It's kind of building them up from the acute stage of injury to late stage of injury. So it's a good learning curve. Fitness session went pretty well, other than the timings. The timings was a real issue. Um, I'd say I remained professional throughout, always willing to help. Tried to stay in the middle just so I could talk to people, getting around them. um, just so they knew that I was trying to help them out.